states that each group ought to be fully self-supporting through their own contributions. If this is your first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, we ask that you be our guest. We're glad you're here and hope you come back and become a part of our lives. On the other hand, if this is a regular meeting for you and you can handle a couple of bucks, it really helps out as we only meet once a week. We're doing donations through Venmo, and Ashley's got it posted up there. You hit the menu button on the top left, select search people, and we're primary purpose at Group Austin. At Group Austin is the important part. Okay, so we're going to do some announcements here. The first announcement I have is we didn't know that we were going to have a waiting room tonight. So Ashley and whoever else is doing this is working their butts off to get everybody admitted into the meeting. It's tricky to admit, 400 or 500 people in, a few at a time. And then also it takes away my chat where I can't see the chat with this thing popping up. So we'll see how this goes. We do a weekly email. If you'd like to get that email, go to our website, which is austinppg.org. And Ashley will post this information in the chat here in a minute. But go to austinppg.org, click on the webmaster link, and we'll get you put on the list so you can get the weekly email. We send out an email usually every Tuesday. It kind of goes over some announcements and things like that for the meeting. Also, for the locals, Tuesday night, we'll be doing on a Tuesday, October 13th, we'll be doing a group conscience meeting. We got some elections coming up. I'll announce exactly what those are next time. We have any more announcements before I move on to the foundation meeting?
Well, there's one announcement. We're doing that. Chad and Stephen and I are doing a little workshop in Santa Fe this Friday night and Saturday. It might be fun. If Chad ever gets his chat back,
Charlie, you can send it to me and I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, that's over my head.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll text you the flyer, Katie.
Okay. It's this weekend, guys. Friday night, all day Saturday, and Sunday.
No Sunday.
No Sunday. It's Charlie, Chad, and Stephen Long. You don't want to miss it. They're going to go through the 12 steps, and it's really something you want to pass on to some folks. And it's at a group for Tom Ewell up in Santa Fe.
It's a group for Tom Ewell and Phil Shirey. And if you guys have a prayer list, if you'd put Phil Shirey on it, I'd be super grateful, because he's really, really sick and not doing well at all.
Okay, I've got that sent over to Katie. She's going to put that information in the chat
right now.
Okay, so next announcement, we've got a recording of a foundation meeting online. It says here on the website, austinppg.org, we have a recording of the foundation meeting. If you're new to AA or our group and have not attended this meeting, we highly encourage you to check it out. It's a great introduction to what Alcoholics Anonymous and our group is all about. Freedom from alcoholism through the application and practice of the 12 steps as they were given us. It's been really cool getting emails from people that have listened to this and giving their thoughts on it. So I recommend that you check it out and send me an email. Let me know what you think. Sponsors, out of, let's see, what do we have? 329 people so far. Out of 329 people, somebody out there is looking for a sponsor. If you came here tonight without a sponsor, there's no reason to leave without a sponsor. It doesn't cost a dime, and it's a really big part of what we do to stay sober. If there's anyone here tonight looking for a sponsor, reach out by email. Now, don't get this confused. Don't send me a chat, because I'll probably miss it. Send me an email at this email address right here on my screen. There's also a link to it at our website, austinppg.org. Send me an email. We'll get you set up with somebody. And this is not just for new people. If there's somebody out there that's been a member of AA for a while, but you feel like you're not really experiencing what you hear people talking about, let me know. We'll either get you set up with a sponsor, or if you want to keep your sponsor, that's fine. We can get you set up with somebody to take you through the steps straight out of the big book, the way we talk about it here. So anyway, send me an email. We'll get you set up with somebody. All right. Charlie, you want to take over here at the tradition?
Sure.
Or you want me to keep going until you get
We're
to
on the 8th tradition, aren't we?
No,
seventh?
the 7th.
Okay, before we begin our study of the Big Book, we're going to review the 7th tradition in its long and short form. Stephen's going to read it. This is on page 562 if you have a 4th edition Big Book.
Thanks, Charlie. My name is Stephen. I'm an alcoholic. And our 7th tradition states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. And our AA experience has taught us that the AA groups themselves ought to be fully supported by the voluntary contributions of their own members. We think that each group should soon achieve this ideal, that any public solicitation of funds using the name of Alcoholics Anonymous is highly dangerous, whether by groups, clubs, hospitals, or other outside agencies. That acceptance of large gifts from any source or of contributions carrying any obligation whatever is unwise. Then too, we view with much concern those AA treasuries which continue beyond prudent reserves to accumulate funds for no stated AA purpose. Experience has often warned us that nothing can so surely destroy our spiritual heritage as futile disputes over property, money, and authority. Thanks. Charlie, you're muted.
Oh, okay, I was talking about where you said authority. This is the only group you come into as a big shot and work your way up to servant over time. Let's see, no comments there. Page 2, page 3. In the spirit of the 12 traditions, our group conscience has elected to use a Big Book study guide to help us stay focused on our study of the AA Big Book. There are one or more questions for darn near every sentence in the basic text. The chairperson will read a question, and a member will read the related sentence. Is it Steve tonight, or is it Chad? Chad.
Yeah.
It's okay to comment more than once in this meeting, but please stay focused on the text at hand. Rather than share our experience with this part of the book, we're trying to share on what our founders are saying, what it means, and why they're saying it now. If comments begin to drift off track, it's the responsibility of the chairperson to redirect the discussion. How to share. You go down to the bottom of the screen where it says participants at the bottom of your screen, select more, and then select raise your hand. Chad and Ashley will be watching for the hands raised, and they'll call on you the best we can. Please be patient. We won't get to everybody, and there's people coming in from all different sources, because sometimes we'll call on somebody that's not in the list. So I was just browsing through the names on the right. I want to give a special shout out to JJ and also to Claire Hall. I saw Claire on there, and we haven't seen you in a long time, Claire. It's good to see you. Lastly, we have a 1936 Webster's Dictionary. If you want to see what a word means or what it meant at the time they were writing the Big Book, just virtually raise your hand, call it out, and we'll look it up. Okay, tonight we are in the Roman numeral XXIX. And boy, last week, we just finished Roman numeral 28 last week. We went through the thing about drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. We've been talking about the terrible cycle of the physical allergy and the mental obsession and those sorts of things. And it says, this is repeated over and over unless this person can experience an entire psychic change. There is very little hope of his recovery. That's what we finished with last week. I mean, there's some really dark stuff in here about alcoholism. I mean, there's another place where it says it's common opinion amongst doctors that most alcoholics are doomed, and that's just not a word you want your doctor saying to you, and, doomed is a bad diagnosis, and we're gonna start here, but on the other hand, and we're gonna read, what do you think, Chad? 1 or 2 or 3 paragraphs?
Um, well, if you're going to read the second one, I'd read the third one.
I agree.
Okay. Roman numeral 29. On the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. The only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. Men have cried out to me in sincere and despairing appeal. Doctor, I cannot go on like this. I have everything to live for. I must stop, but I cannot. You must help me. Faced with this problem, if a doctor is honest with himself, he must sometimes feel his own inadequacy. Although he gives all that is in him, it is often not enough. It often is not enough. One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change. Though the aggregate of recoveries resulting from psychiatric effort is considerable, we physicians must admit we have made little impression upon the problem as a whole. Many types do not respond to the ordinary psychological approach.
P8 in the study guide. Once an alcoholic has experienced an entire psychic change, what happens?
On the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol, the only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. Long sentence.
There's a note here that says, could the few simple rules be the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous? What did the men who cried out to Dr. Silkworth plead for?
Men have cried out to me in sincere and despairing appeal. Doctor, I cannot go on like this.
Looks like you're saying two sentences, Chad.
I have everything to live for.
All the way to you must help me.
I must stop, but I cannot. You must help me.
Now, do doctors, if they're honest with themselves, feel adequate in dealing with alcoholics?
Faced with this problem, if a doctor is honest with himself, he must sometimes feel his own inadequacy.
What is it when the doctor gives all that is in him?
Although he gives all that is in him, it often is not enough.
What can human power not do?
One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change.
Two-parter, can psychiatric efforts help a serious hard drinker? Pause it, considerable.
Though the aggregate of recoveries resulting from psychiatric effort is considerable,
have medicine and psychiatry made much progress in treating chronic alcoholics?
We physicians must admit we have made little impression upon the problem as a whole.
Do real alcoholics respond to ordinary psychological treatment?
Many types do not respond to the ordinary psychological approach.
Okay. Any comments on those three paragraphs we read?
We'll start with Katie.
Oh, well, Chad, thank you so much. I actually was on last week and was doing a bunch of stuff walking around. So I had just my screen on, but I was able to hear the meeting. And, I wanted to say that one of the things that I missed in the big book was how all of this the doctor's opinion does not just apply to the drinking alcoholic. The book goes deeper and deeper wherever you're met. And so this vicious cycle that it's talking about with alcohol, I think also happens with self-centeredness. I know it was in last week's deal, but I think what the vicious cycle looks like when it's untreated alcoholism, spiritual growth, whatever we want to call it, is that we feel the pain and we do the work necessary in the disciplines of 10 and 11, and then we get relief, and then we fall back into the pain, and then we do the disciplines of 10 and 11, we fall back in, to pain. We get into relief and then pain, and then relief and then pain. So I think it's very, very important to when we're looking at the book to realize that the doctor's opinion is talking strictly about alcoholism, and alcohol is the symptom. And when alcohol is removed, this same symptom occurs. And I love where it says, until this psychic change can happen. We can spend a ton of time with knowledge about God. We can go out there and try to find God and learn about God, but it's all knowledge, it's not experience. And this is a program of action. Without the action, we will not get what's needed. That's why the pause when agitated or doubtful will not be there unless you take that as a serious piece of business. So I just wanted to throw that in, for what it's worth, because I didn't do it last week. Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Katie. Good stuff. All right, we'll start here. Let's see. We have Janet.
Hi, my name's Janet Snapp, and I'm an alcoholic from Columbus, Ohio. The part where he talks about the only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules, when I was going through further on page 31, there's a section and more about alcoholism where they talk about that we try to prove ourselves exceptions to the rule, therefore not alcoholic. So you mentioned about the fact that the few simple rules are the 12 steps. But when I get back there and there's things that I'm doing where I'm not maybe doing a nightly inventory, I'm not doing my morning meditation, those are the forms of experimentation that I try to show that I'm not following the few simple rules. So when I was going through trying to figure out, well, it says rule here, where else does it say rule? And it throws you back into the doctor's opinion. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Janet. There's another interesting connection here. I'm glad you said that. It reminded me, last time I was reading this, one of the lines that Charlie pointed out to me that's interesting on page 85, the 10th step promises start on the bottom of 84 and go on into 85. And one of the things it says here on the top of 85 is we will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. And what Charlie and I were discussing, or what he brought to my attention when we were going through this, is that, what do you mean? I put a lot of effort into this deal. And what we decided is that they're not talking about effort to not drink. Yeah, we've put in a lot of effort, but the effort that we've put in has been effort through working the steps. So I think that this kind of ties back into what this says here. That what is the effort necessary? Well, that required to follow a few simple rules, and that's what the doctor here is calling the program that the book lines out for us. Anyway, let's see. Chip. Oh no, Chip, I did that stupid thing again where instead of unmuting you, I lowered your hand. Hang on just a second. Okay, let's try this again. There we go.
Hi, I'm Chip. I'm alcoholic.
Thanks, Chip.
One of the ways I understand the disease of alcoholism, which is very cunning, baffling, and powerful, and it's hard to get a grip on what's going on, but I understand it as a mystical lie, and it uses alcohol to make a relationship with that. It plays higher power, and so I got a higher power that I can't trust, rely, and depend on. It's so elusive. I don't think I don't think anybody's telling me what to do. I'm turned on myself. I self me, because it's nothing can hide in plain sight. That's what a lie is. It's not true. It's not real. It's not there. It's nothing. And it's like, so what's in the blank spot? Literally nothing. The disease. It's like, it's okay to drink because I'll have a good time. I'll be able to control it. It's like, and then the guy talks about it. I can't go on because I have everything to live for, but I must stop, but I can't. Why not? Because I got this higher power that I can't trust, rely, and depend on. And to keep that connection with it, I have to keep drinking, because the drinking knocks out my frontal lobes where I couldn't care if I tried. It's lack of thought, lack of awareness. I think I don't want to cause controversy, but alcohol can be classified as like a drug. It's an anesthetic, like anathea, which is I think a word for God in there actually. But so it's playing higher power, but since it knows nothing, because it is nothing, it knows nothing but itself. That's what higher powers perhaps do. They know nothing but themselves, and that's why perhaps God knows everything. He knows nothing but himself more than everything. So when I make that psychic change, all of a sudden I got a higher power. If I put God as my higher power, I have a higher power I can trust, rely, and depend on, and my life gets better. And I don't want to drink because I got God in my blank spot, my back, my blind spot, because I'm giving it to him because he's giving me a desire. I want to care. I love to do this stuff. And you know, and it's more than human power, because I think we need it's a spiritual malady, because the disease is messing with the spiritual realm. You know, it's telling us who and what we are and what we need to be doing, and that's God's job. He's the only one that really knows that, if you really look at it from my experience. But anyway, thanks for sharing.
Okay, so I got a really cool definition here. Good stuff, Chip. Thanks, buddy. I looked up psychic, and you know, we talk about sometimes how some of these words, how the meaning has changed over the years. So if we look at the old dictionary for psychic, the second definition says not physical, lying outside the realm of known physical processes. But check out the first definition says of or pertaining to the psyche. Now, when you look at the definition of psyche, it says the human soul, also the mind or the mental life. So I thought it was interesting that at the time this book was written, the word psyche, one of the things it's referring to is the human soul.
Interesting.
Okay. Sweet. I have a definition too. Were you done?
Yes.
Okay. Aggregate is, let's see, a mass assembled or sum of particulars, collectively and together is the best definitions for that.
Perfect. Okay. Chris from Reno.
Hi, everyone. Chris, recovered alcoholic, Reno, Nevada. Man, the sacrifice that William D. Silkworth did. He put himself out of a job. Really? I can't help you. Get a psychic change. Bam. Drop the mic. You know, I know we're not also share our experience, but this is the dude's third treatment that he got this, you know. This Silkworth guy was like prominent chief surgeon at a specializing in alcohol and drug addiction in a hospital, and he's telling him, I can't help you. I haven't been to a psych ward in 19 years anymore. And you know, you go in there and this lady's walking out of her room every hour, clocking like a cuckoo clock, and then turning around and walking back into her room. Yeah. Am I an outright mental defective in full flight from reality, or am I just an alcoholic who needs a psychic change? And I've saved a lot on medications too. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Chris. Charlie, when you're ready, you just jump in there.
That's good.
Okay, next up we got Andrew. Okay, I'm going to try it again. There we go.
Can y'all hear me now? Perfect. What's up, everybody? My name is Andrew Kirkpatrick. Everyone calls me Kirk, and I'm a recovered alcoholic.
Kirk?
This is my first time at this meeting, and I already love it. I love the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the greatest piece of spiritual literature ever written, in my opinion. And I'm looking at what we read, and I'm really keying in on faced with this problem. Right in the third paragraph, we read, faced with this problem. If a doctor is honest with himself, he must sometimes feel his own inadequacy. Although he gives all that is in him, it is often not enough. One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change. And immediately I think of the story of Roland Hazard on page 27, where Roland is with Dr. Jung, and Roland has just put a blank check out on the table and said, Doc, fix me. And Doc says, I can't. And he asks him, Doctor, is there no exception on page 27? And Dr. Yoon says, yes, there is. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what are called vital spiritual experiences. That's another word that's used in the Big Book for psychic change, spiritual experience. To me, these occurrences are phenomena. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Huge emotional displacements and rearrangements, another word for change. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. In fact, I have been trying to produce some such emotional rearrangement within you. With many individuals, the methods which I employed are successful, but I have never been successful with an alcoholic of your description. So here again, we have in the book a doctor seeing his own inadequacy. He got a blank check in like 1920 from a rich dude. And he said, no, tell me this program's not God inspired. Tell me this isn't divinely gifted to us, you know? And then the other thing that came to mind in that sentence, right? Something more than human power is needed to produce this essential psychic change. With those three sentences, it draws me to the ABCs at the end of how it works, right? B, probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. It's a really good reminder that we're talking about it early, right? This idea is being planted in our heads from the beginning. Job's not going to do it. Wife's not going to do it. Doctor's not going to do it. Those are all human powers. You know what I'm saying? Those are all human powers. Many types do not respond to the ordinary psychological approach, right? I don't know. I love it when there are connections in the Big Book Alcoholics Anonymous, and you can find all the people that contributed saying the same things in different ways throughout the book. And I love that because sometimes I hear it, right? You know, sometimes I might not understand what you mean when you tell me one feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic change, but maybe I understand that no human power could relieve me of my alcoholism. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you guys for letting me share.
Thanks, Kurt.
Well put.
Looks like we've got another Big Book nerd on our hands.
Mm-hmm.
Well, welcome, Kirk. We're glad to have you, buddy. Next up is, almost did it. I keep trying to lower hands. Wendy? There we go.
Wendy, I'm a former Big Book nerd, but I've been humbled by a few things in life. I just wanted to share that I've been here a few times and listening. Thank you to everybody. And I have a Big Book, a hardcover concordance that I was given by a man named Oli, who was sober a very long time on Maui, and he died last year or the year before, I can't remember. But I haven't had a drink or a drug for 27 years, and he was a good friend of mine, and he gave this to me before he died. And I got sober going through every page, or every word on every page with Big Book thumpers, and I feel so nurtured listening to you folks, because as we all know, not a lot of people are doing it this way anymore. And when I hear people who are, I just feel like everything in the world is right, because I need this. And when I started, I just had a Big Book and a dictionary and people that met with me on a very consistent, committed basis. And because of that, I'm 27 years clean and sober, and I know how to pass that on to other women. Thank you very much for calling on me. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Wendy. Okay, let's see. Next up is Angela.
Hey guys, I'm Angela. I'm an alcoholic. Really grateful to be here tonight. I really enjoyed what Kirk had to share, because I've also got a part of the book that pops into my mind when I hear that. But on page 143, it also tells us about a psychic change in chapter 2, employers of all places. But where it says in the first full paragraph that you're providing him with the best possible medical attention, he should understand that he must undergo a change of heart. And I think that really, really reiterates the definition you gave, Chad. But to get over drinking will require transformation of thought and attitude. So the dictionary that I have, I've got an old one as well, for psychic is of or pertaining to the human soul, spirit, or mind. So I think that's the perfect definition back on page 143 as well. Thank you guys for letting me share.
Angela, I love that Alabama accent.
You too. Yeah. You know, Chad, it's funny, when I was reading that same sentence we've been talking about that Kurt mentioned, you know, if you've been sponsoring people for a while, we've all had the situation where you've given a guy your best stuff, you got him on the path, and he drinks again. And then you go back through the stuff and you do, you know, the inventory, and they drink again. And, you know, there's that line where it says, I think it could also say, faced with this problem, if a sponsor is honest with himself, he must sometimes feel his own inadequacy. And, you know, one of my favorite guys talks about, you know, that a moment of awakening for him was one time he came to me and he needed a new sobriety date. And I said, we were in the kitchen at Primary Purpose Group, and I said, man, I'd given him everything I had, you know, and I said, man, I wish there was something I could do for you. And he talks about that when he gets a chip as like a moment of clarity for him, where he's like, you know, I gotta have God help. And it's funny, the first time he talked about that, I remember thinking, that was, you know, powerful for you. I just said it because I was out of bullets. I had nothing left to say, and it's amazing how God could speak through that. But there's a lot of references in the book to this psychic change, and but then there's a lot of people. You know, the big thing for us is that we have a program of action that will bring it about. Silkworth didn't know how to bring it about. Carl Jung didn't know how to bring it about. I mean, they'd seen it happen. They're like, God, dude, we got to get you one of those, you know. And I got no idea how to make it happen for you, you know. And so, you know, our 12 steps says, having had this spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. It's a big deal that we don't want to take for granted being able to, you know, I've said many times, I don't know which is cooler, being able to have a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, or being able to show somebody else how to do it. Because we have a clear-cut directions that'll bring it about, and you know, it's a mighty thing.
Hey, honey, would you explain Dr. Bob and Bill meeting and how the doctor had what he had and Bill had? That'd be a good time for some.
Well, you know, what makes AA a big deal, I'll try to be brief, but what makes AA a big deal was an understanding of three things: an understanding of the problem, an understanding of the solution to that problem, but even more importantly, a program of action that would bring about that solution. And there's a lot of stories in the book where people had 2 out of 3 of those things, but it was when all 3 of them came, like Roland Hazard, you know, when he started Carl Jung, he understood the problem. He says, you got the mind of a chronic alcoholic. And he says, and he knew the solution, but he didn't know how to make it happen. You know, that was the missing piece for him. For Dr. Bob, he suspected that a spiritual remedy would help his problem. And he'd been in the Oxford movement for a couple of years where they had a program, but he didn't understand the problem. You know, it says when the broker explained the problem to him, as Silkworth had explained it to him, the doctor went after the spiritual remedy, you know, and with more energy than he ever had before. I'm paraphrasing. And he sobered up never to drink again. It's a big deal when those 3 things come together. And as you read the book, you'll see places where people had 2 of the 3, but not all 3. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes. That Silkworth gave the allergy and the mental obsession, but he didn't know how to get there. And Jung and Dr. Bob had the Oxford group had that, and when they came together is when the magic happened for all of us.
Well, and to take it even one step further, you know, Bill had been going out talking to people about his burning bush spiritual experience, and he went back to Silkworth and said, none of them are getting sober. And Silkworth told him, so he goes back, instead of focusing on the burning bush, he focused on the hopelessness of the malady. And that the next one he talked to allegedly was Dr. Bob, and with pretty good results.
Good stuff. Thanks, Charlie.
Sorry about all the crosstalk.
We forgive you guys. Thank you so much for. I started to get a little emotional. I started to say, thank you so much, Charlie and Katie, for getting this meeting going about, 14 years ago. But I've kind of, my voice started to crack a little bit. But we love hearing, we all love hearing from you guys. We can't get enough of it. All right, Lil. Lil, I unmuted you, and then I muted you. Let's see if I can get you back here.
Okay. Hi. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Lil. I am alcoholic. I keep wondering if I stand up and walk, if I'll end up in another square like Katie did. Anyway, sorry. Well, I love what's been said, and I love what's been shared. The thing that has jumped out at me today is that first sentence where it says, on the other hand, and strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, because people do not want to believe that it's a God thing. It's like anything else, but not a God thing. And people have mentioned Carl Jung. Carl Jung wasn't just a psychologist. He was the father of psychology. He is still, what Carl Jung knew is still being taught in universities today. Like he was a big deal. And so when Carl Jung said, oh, I'm helpless here, it still means, it just touches my heart. It still means a lot. It's extremely meaningful. And he was at a loss to bring about what had to happen for alcoholics. And it reminded me of Bill's story on page 7, where, Ebby had gone to visit him, and Bill says, surely this was the answer, self-knowledge. But it was not, because it didn't work. Self-knowledge doesn't work. And I know that I still see people trying, they come here, they learn, oh, okay, I got it. But it doesn't work. What I need, and at the very bottom it says, many types do not respond to the ordinary psychological approach. What type? Real alcoholics. We've already talked about real alcoholics, and we're going to talk more about real alcoholics. I don't. An alcoholic of my type doesn't respond to normal psychological approaches. I need something more. I need an absolutely necessary psychic change. Something's got to happen here. Something's got to happen, or I am doomed. Who seem doomed because they have so many problems. And my God, when they just pile up, I am alcoholic. It's a mental, emotional, spiritual malady. I'm lost without having that. I need that desperately. And I will go after that with everything I've got, just like I went after alcohol. That's all I've got. Thanks so much for asking me.
Thanks, Lil. Good stuff. Okay, Evan.
Evan, alcoholic. I was going over the part where it says psychic change, and where it there's a solution. Someone mentioned it, huge emotional displacement and rearrangements, and the talk about soul and the definitions, and Dr. Jung saying that it had been happening for thousands of years. But it was called emotional displacement. One definition or something that I thought of, Psyche, was the wife of Cupid in Greek mythology. Greeks used the gods, if they believed in them or not, they used them to tell stories about how life worked. And Psyche was referred to as the soul, the god of the soul, and Cupid was referred to as love. So the heart and the soul being together. Emotions, and it's like the head and the heart. And there's been how many references to having them come together in the program. So maybe, I don't know, maybe the Greeks were onto something back then. He said it had been happening for thousands of years, and maybe that's how they were telling how that happened. I don't know if that made sense, but that's what I got. Thank you.
Evan, it's good to see you, brother. How long has it been now?
It's been a minute. September 5th is my sobriety date, and I have 25 days today.
Attaboy. Attaboy.
All right. Thank you, sir. Next up is Ray.
I'm Ray Shepard. I'm a recovered alcoholic.
You're right.
One thing that jumps out at me at these three paragraphs, but specifically in the first paragraph, is a story of Bill at the Mayflower Hotel. Now we're talking about once the psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, had so many problems he despaired of, and Bill describes these problems in the Mayflower Hotel, but suddenly he finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. We're going to meet Mr. Suddenly again when we start talking about Jim and Fred. Mr. Suddenly will show up in strange ways there, but here we have a psychic change that's occurred, and now Mr. Suddenly shows up, and I think that Dr. Silkworth has given us some kind of an indication in terms of that, i.e. following these few simple rules. Back a page, he talked about, Dr. Silkworth talked about, he said that, these chronic alcoholics that have recovered, said they believe in themselves and still more in the power that pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. The authors are going to even talk about developing a consciousness of the presence of that power within us as being the most important aspect of their lives. Bill's going to wrap this up in chapter 7, where he's going to, I think, give three simple ideas that to me, when we talk about the only effort necessary, follow a few simple rules, he's going to put it in a way that says, if you want to stop drinking, depend on God more than you depend on people. If you want to get well, trust God and clean house. And if you want to recover, develop a relationship with God. And so I think we're given a template here as Silkworth is describing this process of this alcoholic that he talked about on the previous page, who could not even solve his problems. Now he's easily able to, if he is willing to believe that there's a power that he can access and develop then a constant conscious contact with that power. And as you walk through life, that consciousness, the presence of that consciousness is going to be the most important thing, that Mr. Suddenly is going to show up and say, hey, I don't care what you say. I'm not going to follow that line. So there's a lot that Silkworth talks about here. I love how Bill is able to tie all of these together, not only with Silkworth in his story, but also with this program of recovery. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Good to see you. All right. Barry.
Hey, my name is Barry. I'm an alcoholic, and it's good to be here. And, this is really powerful what we're reading here, especially, and you feel the sympathy for the doctors who have tried everything they can in order to help alcoholics, And once again, this part here is not just going to show up here once and then disappear. This is going to echo throughout the rest of the big book. There are 4 chapters in the big book: working with others, to the employer, to the wives, to the family afterward. And you can really succinctly summarize those chapters up as, if an alcoholic is not willing to admit that they are the problem, then there's nothing that can be done to help them. You know, the ability of an alcoholic to absolutely mean something, but to have no real ability to be honest with themselves about what the problem really is something that keeps recurring. That's why I love so much what Katie was saying about the cycle of recovery, pain, and how it is that we have to keep that going. And, you know, I love what Charlie was saying about the fact that no one had put this together. You know, even the Emmanuel movement had figured out that this was a 3-part problem: mental, spiritual, and physical. But they had no idea how to produce that spiritual change, that psychic change at all. They would have meetings, but their meetings were very clinical. There's no sense of, hey, can we get together and work together on this, and can something extra happen? At the in-person PPG meeting last night, we were discussing the 9-step promises, you know, and it's, no matter how far down we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. And then the very next promise, then those feelings of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. You know, the fact that when 2 alcoholics who have been properly armed with knowledge about themselves get together, and they're honestly willing to follow these few simple rules, that something really amazing can happen, that your entire life can change in the course of it. That's something that this is hitting us. And we can do it because we sit here and we know that it's spiritual. We know that for a fact because the very next paragraph in here is going to give another example about how it is that an alcoholic goes through a symbol of, hey, man, I got everything set up. It's all going to happen. I've got this important appointment coming up. And then at the last minute, Mr. Suddenly, I love that Ray called it that, Mr. Suddenly appears and everything goes down, despite the fact that I honestly want to quit with all the power in my heart. You know, this disease is just not going to let me make it through there. The description of alcoholism is cunning, baffling, and powerful. And, you know, cunning often means patience. That's how it is that this disease can function very much. And no, just the last thing is that as we're sitting here, we're really emphasizing the need to have a spiritual awakening on this. You know, there is the chapter more about alcoholism, and I had never understood this until I went to PPG, and the people here taught me this, that more about alcoholism. Those people in that chapter, the men described there, they totally get the physical allergy. They absolutely understand the mental obsession. They don't have the spiritual. That's the part that they're not able to give. And that's why it is that that chapter is, once again, another tragic example of good people destroyed by this illness. And I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Oh, Barry, you're a treat.
Thanks, Barry. Good stuff. Last week, we read this powerful paragraph that so many of us use so often in carrying the message and going through the book with people. And it's describing us. So it starts off here in the part that I'm going to read, describing a sober alcoholic. This is the alcoholic who for the moment is sober. And what it says is this guy is restless, irritable, and discontented, unless he can again experience a sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks. So after he's succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and taken the few drinks, now the phenomenon of craving develops. He passes through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over. And this is what, I put this up last week. I'm going to try it again this week. And I had a lot of people email me for a copy of this. But this is this cycle, starts here with this sober alcoholic is supposed to be better if he stops drinking, but he's feeling restless, irritable, and discontented. The obsession to drink kicks in. He takes the first drink. The allergy or craving kicks in. He goes through the, is Ashley going to share that? He goes through the spree and starts to suffer these consequences. And then I'm still looking at mine down here. I'm so goofy. It's right there. Then he experiences all this remorse, has a firm resolution to stop, and now once he's sober, he's back to restless, irritable, and discontented. The reason I'm going through this again is because this is the cycle that an alcoholic lives in. This is that's our lives. We live in that cycle. Sometimes there's little shots of hope. I'm sober now, things are going to get better, and then I get restless, irritable, and discontented. It all starts over, and then I burn it all down, and then I feel terrible, and now I'm never going to do this again, and everybody's experiencing a little, and then I burn it all down again. And this is my life, and it's a cycle that I have absolutely no power to get out of. And I might have a lot of people in my life who love me and are willing to do anything to pull me out of that cycle, but no human power can do it. Not for the real alcoholic. For some people, maybe it can. For some people, the doctor and the family and the psychiatrist, some of these people, they can be helped. But what this book is talking about, and when I say real alcoholic, I mean the big book's definition of a real alcoholic. And by definition, it's the guy that stuff doesn't work for. So there are some of us who this stuff doesn't work for. Not when I say this stuff, I mean human power. The guy that human power, whatever form it may be, human power doesn't work. So there's got to be something to break this cycle. And the only thing we found that can break this cycle for the real alcoholic is this psychic change or spiritual experience. And that's what with the reading that we read tonight, that's what it opens up with. Dr. Silkworth is saying, this is the guy who lives in this cycle until he dies an alcoholic death. On the other hand, and strange as this may seem, once this psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, the very same person who seemed doomed, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol. And what that means is that this guy is not only is he sober now, but he's not running around trying to stay sober all the time. That's a big deal, because most alcoholics, when they come into recovery, and what they find out is it's about total sobriety, total abstinence. We don't do any drinking. What they think is, great, I know what it feels like to be sober, and sober sucks. I remember the first time it was said to me, sober forever. Don't worry, God can keep you sober forever. I'm like, that is not good news. So I know what sober feels like, and I've had that before, and it doesn't work. So that's the beautiful thing about AA. The founders of this program realize that sobriety is not the solution to alcoholism. This psychic change is the solution. And once we have this psychic change and we continue to do the work to maintain this psychic change or this spiritual awakening or this spiritual experience, as we continue to do this, we're not having to put effort into not drinking. Now, don't hear me wrong. In the very beginning, there's going to be times where we just got to hang in there and not drink. But we don't live our lives that way. At 17 years sober, I am not trying not to drink. I drive by the liquor store and I don't even notice it. I'm in the restaurant, they're drinking beer, and that's what we experience. We don't even notice it. We're not trying not to drink. What we're trying to do is work a program to maintain and grow that psychic change. And then, of course, what everybody else has explained, that what Dr. Silkworth is saying here now is, I can't bring this on for you. It's going to take this program that they've laid out in this book, these 12 steps and everything that goes along with it. All right, Charlie, I think I blew the rest of the meeting.
Thanks, Chad. I think sometimes we forget when we tell the new guy, if you work these steps, you'll never have to drink again. And he thinks we're telling me he's going to feel like he feels, for the rest of his life. And I'd rather stick my head in the oven than have 35 years of that. This is from page 164 of the.
Charlie, can I say just one quick thing? I just feel compelled to say this one more time. this is so important for the person who has time also. Otherwise, we look at this doctor's opinion as just for the alcoholic not drinking. But that vicious cycle that is also talked about on 72 and 73 can happen stone cold sober, that you go through a spree and then you come out remorseful, you get some help, and then you just rest on your laurels. And so that same vicious cycle, you can use that in sponsorship. I just wanted to get that in there one more time.
That's good stuff, Katie.
Thank you.
I'm going to walk over into your little yellow box here in a few minutes.
Okay.
This comes from page 164 of the big book as printed in As Bill Sees It on page 331. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but you obviously can't transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and for countless others. This is the great fact for us. For the newcomer, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. I want to thank you guys for a good meeting. I want to congratulate anybody that's celebrating Chip this week. You scared me. I want to congratulate anybody who's celebrating this week, and welcome all of our visitors. Notice we had a visitor from Ecuador today. That's a first. Welcome. All right, guys, we have a tradition here of closing with the 7-step prayer for anybody who'd care to join in. We're going to open up the mics and do it all together.
I think we put it together.
Creator, I'm willing, knowing that you should have all the bad and the bad.
Now remove from me.
Every single day that you carry against the way of my faithfulness to you and my fellows, to you and my fellows.
To do your bidding.
Help prepare to do your bidding.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everybody. For another awesome meeting.
Thank you, Charlie and Katie.
Thank you so much. All right,
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
Great meeting.